Welcome back to the Real Quick with Mike Swick podcast. Today we have Gegard Mousasi on the show, a man that I look up to a lot, a big fan of, a man who's fought a who's list of fighters, multiple world champions. I think he's a 6-time world champion himself. He's fighting in Bellator. He just recently beat Douglas Lima for the middleweight championship. He's been a fighter at middleweight. He's been a fighter at light heavyweight. He's been a fighter at heavyweight. The guy's done it all. Super fascinating, but I don't know a lot about him other than the fact that he just fights a lot, has had a lot of fights and wins. So this is a really cool podcast for me, and I'm very excited about it to finally have him on the show. So without further ado, let's talk to Gegard. Gegard, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you on the show. It's amazing we haven't talked a lot. If that much at all. I know I've seen you around, but I haven't really had a good conversation with you, man. And I've really looked up to you for a long time.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. I've been in the fight game for a long time. So
yeah, 2003, right? You started out pretty much turning pro around that time.
Yeah. The first fight, no experience on the ground or anything. I just boxing. I went in it. There were 30-second ground rules, and then they would stood you up again. And I knocked the guy 3 times down, and I won. That's how I started.
Yeah. When you say you've been in the game a long time, and it was like 2003, and that's like when I got in the UFC, that makes me feel really old.
Yeah, I had a picture with Edmund Shabazian. He was so tall. He was, and now he's fighting in UFC. He's 20, 21 years old. Now yeah. I feel old also, you know. I'm at the end of my game, you know. That was beginning, and now I'm at my end. End of my career.
It happens so fast. It happens so fast, man. Like, but the big difference in our careers, man. You've had such a huge career fighting so many people. You've beat something like what, 11 world champions or something?
Yeah, I never counted. How many champions I fought, but that could be right, you know. Just
crazy.
By Machida, Rory, Chris Weidman, Jacare, you know, they were Strikeforce, Bellator, UFC ex-champions, so yeah, so many.
And then you're champion. You've been like a 6-time world champion yourself, so I mean that obviously was championship fights as well. Incredible, man. It's completely incredible. But going back, so you're from the Netherlands. Are you there right now?
Yeah, I'm in Holland. I always fought out of Holland. Never moved or do any training camps outside of Holland. I always stayed in my roots. It took a long time before I got the team that I got now, but I had to build it up. And then now good guys from all over the country come to my gym to train, you know. We have Peter, we have Rainier. You know, you have those guys that all come to my gym and we help each other out.
And I want to get back to that for sure, but I definitely want to congratulate you on your recent victory over Douglas Lima. Great fight, awesome fight from the beginning to the end, man. Is fantastic fight against a very, very tough opponent. I think he's one of the most underrated welterweights in the world because he's so good, but you know he hasn't got the attention of a lot of the other welterweights like in the UFC and other places. And you just dominated him.
Yeah, well, you know, he looked big. Big. He was the same size as me.
For sure he was.
To be honest, I looked a little bit chubby also. My weight cut wasn't that great in that fight. Because of the quarantine, I wasn't able to train as much as I wanted, so I trained less. I was a little bit chubbier. I had a difficult weight cut. Looking back at the tape, I thought I wasn't ripped as I should have been. But he was a big welterweight. It was a big welterweight, so I don't feel like I beat a welterweight. I feel like I beat a true big middleweight. You
Absolutely.
know, maybe I got 3-4 pounds over him. You know, 3-4 pounds is not decisive to say, well, I had the advantage, you know.
It didn't even look like that, and I didn't mean it in that way. I just meant he's been so dominant in that division. You know, obviously when you go up in weight, you've went up in weight to heavyweight. So, I mean, when you get to a certain weight class, you're that fighter. That's who you are. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter what you fought at before. I fought Joe Riggs, who fought in heavyweight all the way to welterweight. You know, it's like these guys fluctuate. Rumble Johnson. It doesn't necessarily mean he can only fight in one weight. And the way you fought him and the way he fights and the way you fight, weight doesn't matter so much. If I'm correct in saying that, it's a striking battle. Weight is almost sometimes a disadvantage depending on when you take into account speed and reflexes and movement and footwork and things like that.
Yeah, I think he's a guy who is in his prime.
Absolutely, and that's another thing.
Recent losses, he avenged them. He was in his prime. He won the tournament. He beat some really good names. So that was a guy in his prime with a lot of confidence. So it meant a lot to beat him, But could have done better? Yeah. Should have gone more for the wrestling because I was successful taking him down. But my corner was saying, don't take him down, So things like that. But I feel like he knows he could have done better, So yeah, but beating a guy like that, I think is underestimated as a welterweight. I think he's gonna be champion for a long time also. So it felt good. It felt good to have a win over him, and then. But the next fight, I have to go, be more aggressive and finish the guy. As a fighter, you want to be able to finish the guys. I say that's if you finish guys, your next opponent. You also beating your next opponent. You know what I mean?
Yep, I get
Let's
you.
say if you're finishing guys, your next opponent is impressed. Your next opponent will have better. It will give you more respect. So I think, and you want to be the dominant champion. So that's my goal for the next fight, actually.
Yeah, I think with your resume that you're going to have respect no matter who you fight. Looking back at that fight, though, just really fast, one thing I noticed that you do so well, not only in that fight and other fights, though, you really utilize your feints. And I think that that's underestimated in the sport. I think you can really throw people off by using those feints, be it kicks or be it shrugging your shoulders for a punch or whatever. It really took him off his game, I think, and it had him backing up, especially in that first couple rounds. For pretty much almost the entire fight, he was backing up. But a lot of it was because of you feinting more than even the striking, because he just didn't know what was going to come at him at any given time.
Yeah, I had the first round. I took him down. I think the first round, I gained the respect. I did some really good ground and pound. I hit him with a couple of good elbows, and then his face expression didn't change at all. And then he didn't get cut. He has the skin of a crocodile. So I felt from the first round, I thought, okay, this guy is here to stay.
Yeah.
This is not a guy I'm gonna put away just like that. So I hit him a couple of times well. I think that set the mentality of the fight, how it would go to the next couple rounds. So round 2, 3, 4, he didn't really went for it. You know what I mean? And I was satisfied just winning the round. So I think the first round was very important. Because I was successful in the stand-up, I didn't really go for the takedowns, which I should have, because from the 8 takedowns, I got 4. So I could have done better, and there was no real danger for me for guillotines or getting caught coming inside, because I was feinting and it was near the cage. So I should have been more relentless in that. As a fighter, you're a perfectionist. You want to do well.
Absolutely.
Those are things that I thought that I did wrong, and next time better.
when you're a good fighter, you're a perfectionist, and I think that's why you are a perfectionist. There's a lot of fighters I think that aren't, and that's why they're not as good. But you critiquing yourself as harsh as you are about a fight like that against an opponent like that shows you that you are a very, very, very much perfectionist. That being said, when you signed to fight Douglas Lima, and you looked at his credentials and you knew obviously who he was and what dangers he brought in, was there anything that shocked you in that fight, or was there anything that happened that you didn't expect, or did it pretty much play out how you kind of envisioned and trained for?
Well, I knew he would be backing up. One thing I underestimated him is his low kicks.
Yeah,
because in training, no one can hit me with low kicks.
Yeah.
But I didn't study his tape because I trained with the guy. I saw previous fights. I knew there was no surprises in his game. He's very basic, but everything he does hard, and he does it well. He's patient. He's not like a guy who puts the pace. He doesn't do spinning back kicks, all those crazy stuff. So I didn't watch a lot of tapes. I don't know. This fight, I wasn't. I could have done better. I could have been better prepared. But I didn't watch him because I didn't want to give him too much respect. Sometimes you do that. Sometimes you watch some tapes, you give the guy too much respect. So I felt like, okay, I know exactly what he does. Don't want to watch too much fights. I saw maybe or two, but I didn't know he was kicking my calves.
Yeah.
I was thinking he'd just give low kicks, and I was like, no one hits me with low kicks.
Yeah.
And then in the fight, he gave me those kicks to my calves.
Yeah.
And that hurt us like a motherfucker.
Yeah, that's the new thing.
Too late. I should have studied him more. Let's say, yeah.
That's a new thing. I had to talk with Henry Cejudo about that. I had to talk with Chito Vera when he fought Suga about that, because these low calf kicks are where it's at now.
Yeah.
There's some nerves in there and stuff like that. And you're a hard guy to kick in the legs because you do a lot of checking and you have great movement.
Yeah.
And then he started getting a few in there. And of course, you did a great job of trying not to show that it was damaging and it was affecting you. But I think even the commentary at one point was saying that there's going to be some ice coming up to your room later on that night, and I was even thinking like, man, I wonder how much that's adding up. And it's funny you said that, because obviously it was. You were just doing a very good coy job of not showing it, but you handled it so well. I mean, you fought that fight, in my opinion, very, very professionally and very, very smart, and you beat him strategically exactly how you should have. I give you an A on that one.
Yeah, thank you, brother. After I went to press conference, I sat down. I had difficulties to getting up. And the last round, he kicked me 2 times. I think maybe 1 or 2, I would have been limping, but I wasn't mobile anymore. But I thought, okay, if I show him, he's going to kick me more. So I was like, yeah, you never have to show your opponent that you're hurt. But
right.
Yeah, that guy hits hard, kicks hard. Maybe something that I have to also do, But usually when you do the right low kick, you're vulnerable to takedowns. A guy can go for your leg, you're out of balance. That was one mistake that, like I said, I should have gone more for the takedowns. He would have kicked a lot less.
Yeah. How do you stay so chill? Like you seem like, for someone who's fought so many tough opponents, so many dangerous opponents, and won so many big fights, had so much on the line so many times, was in there in such aggressive fights and aggressive techniques and movements and scenarios. How do you maintain your chillness before the fight, actually during the fight when you're unleashing this carnage, and then after the fight when you're pronounced a winner? And when like what's going through your head? Because usually so much emotion comes out with people, be it good or bad or whatever. You seem very, very level.
Well, I don't know. I never felt going into cage, and I've never been scared. You know what I mean? I never thought, oh, this guy. I had those fights when I had to fight Mark Hunt, but that was more in the beginning. I had some sleepless nights also with Melvin Manhoef. I challenged the guy because no one was giving me any credit in Holland, so I was upcoming. But he was knocking out everybody back then in his prime. And Mark Hunt, especially the big guy, I was like, what the fuck? If I don't take these guys down, they're going to knock my head off. So I had sleepless night. But, I faced so many fighters, stand-up, big strikers, heavy strikers, all kinds of fighters. So eventually I dealt with them, never really got hurt. Only fight that I got stopped with was Uriah Hall. And then... that was also something. I wasn't really out. The ref stopped it. I just got right back up. I was hurt, but I wasn't gone. But I always know I had a good chin. I'm difficult to hit. I think throughout the years you build confidence. You know what I mean? It's also a little bit character. I never went in the cage and being scared in the cage. In the cage, I was also always thinking, okay, it's fight time. But before, of course, nerves, you have to perform. Sometimes you're fighting a fighter like, oh, shit, this guy can hurt me. Always, you have those thoughts. But after a while, you've done it so many times, it just... also, if you have too many fights, you fight a little bit more careful, When you have injuries in a fight, when you're younger, you don't think about it, because... you go through it, but after a while, you have maybe 50, 60 fights. One time you break your orbital. One time you break your nose. You have bad experience where you're dead tired. They rush you to the hospital. You know what I mean? So those experiences make you a different fighter sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. 100%.
So you fight a little bit more different. Younger, you're more aggressive. But I think experience overall and just character. It's just. Of course, I worry sometimes before fights. I have to perform, pressure. Injuries sometimes, personal things that you have to deal with.
Absolutely.
But end of the day, once the cage closed, everything is out of. It's fight time.
Yeah, I always say that to people. Like, that's the one thing that the fans and the followers don't ever understand fully, because it never gets brought up and it never gets talked about. But these guys that have either big win streaks or a lot of fights like yourself, in the 50s or whatever, you don't show up 100% to those fights. Like, you don't show up even.
Yeah.
It's very rare to show up 100% to any fight, to be honest with you. And then more or less when you have 50 fights, you're going to show up at like 50%, at 40%, at 60%. And that's where that credit is given, as far as I'm concerned, to you guys that have all those fights and that have win streaks and that go out there, because you're having to fight in situations where, you might have relationship problems, you might have family problems, you might have stress problems, financial problems, you might have pressure from your team, friends. There's so many things that you've I know had to go through without even asking you and without you even telling me for many of those fights, and for you to continue to do it and pull them off, much respect, and I think that's something that kind of goes under the radar to the fans, and they don't kind of get to see that side.
Yeah, I think maybe you beat the guy 9 out of 10 times, but on that day he beats you. You know what I mean? Also, the best fighter doesn't always win.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you go into a fight emotionally, thinking you had a bad performance or your career is on the line. Maybe you're gonna get cut, and then you think, oh, I must win this. You fight more aggressive, and then it doesn't pay off. Sometimes it works. Sometimes you're aggressive, it pays off. You have a bad weight cut. On the fight day, you're actually not at your best. You have the day before, you're cutting so much weight. You have injuries throughout the whole training camp. So actually, a lot of times fighters are not at their best when they perform. I think any other given day, they would have done better. But it's the thing is, you have to perform on that certain date that you got against that kind of that opponent. But like I said, the best guy doesn't always win. You might beat the guy 9 out of 10 times, but on that day he beat you. Maybe you're too emotional, you had a bad weight cut, whatever. So that's the fight game. It's I had those fights. I had those fights when I thought I could have beat this guy. Just maybe too long of a training camp, or fighting too emotional, and I thought I should have never lost to that guy. But things happen. I could have done better, but I fucked up a couple times. But I'm learning. I'm still learning. Even after all these years, I had to learn it more by myself. You know what I mean? Some guys have good coaches from the beginning, and they teach them. With me, it was more, I had to rebuild my team. I had to experience everything. I had to lose and get back on the winning string. So for me, it was a longer road and more. I think a couple losses I didn't have to take. So I could have done better. That's how I feel. If I have to say I regret something, is like maybe in some fights that I lost or didn't do well, I could have done better.
Yeah, and it sucks because you can't say anything. You got to just suck it up and go on. The first time you complain after a loss, then all of a sudden you're the bad guy, even though it might be legit. Yeah. But fortunately for you, you've been able to have a couple rematches and that go very well. I think Uriah is one of them, Uriah Hall, and I think that was one that you probably really wanted to get back, and you did so in very, very dominant fashion.
That was like a fight that. Joe Silva was because I had the one fight, Costa Filippo. I fought him. It went to decision. I won every round easy. I took him down, controlled him, and then Joe Silva complained that I should have finished him, and that he wasn't on my level, and they were not happy. Something like that. I heard from my manager. So the next fight I was against Uriah Hall, and then I thought, okay, I'm gonna show that I can beat them easily. I was so aggressive. I went forward, took him down, controlled, hurt him in the first round. Second round, I thought, okay, let's go. We got to kick his ass. I go. He does the spinning back kick. he admitted himself he was trying to kick my stomach, but I was so aggressive going forward that because of my reaction, I ducked.
Yeah.
When I ducked, he got me on my face. So that's the case. Like I said, too aggressive. I felt
Yeah.
like fighting emotionally because of things up outside. Because they said, well, you could have performed better. You know what I mean? So it got to me. I felt like, okay, I can fight aggressive. So that didn't pay off.
Yeah.
I was too aggressive.
Yeah.
Didn't pay off. Second time, I was more controlled. I thought, okay, I'm gonna take my time. I know I'm not gonna do anything crazy, and I was able to beat him. So
Yeah.
like I said, things that come from outside. Like it's not even if you're the better fighter or not, but just they affect you so much. Those little stuff that can build up to a big thing.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, Joe Silva being the former matchmaker of the UFC, and that's his job to put the fights together, and then to also make sure to entice you guys.
Yeah, make the life of fighters a little bit harder.
Me as well. He was the matchmaker for me too, to entice us to get out there and make good fights, and so he was definitely good at doing that, be it good or bad. For those of you that didn't know, but going back to the whole like showing up and stuff getting in the way and things, how is this with no audience and the COVID, the protocols? Now I know from the UFC because I have a lot of UFC fighters on here and how they're handling it. How is it with Bellator? Like what were the protocols for you guys, and how did that affect you in your fight differently since you've had so many fights? I think you can give a good testament to how this was so different.
Well, I got tested before I flew. I came there. I went in quarantine. Next day, I got tested. I was in quarantine still a day. And then I tested negative, of course. And then I would be able to stay in the hotel. We were not allowed to go outside. Anything you wanted to order, you had to order with an app. Restaurants were closed. You order food, you go to your room. Even the cleaning ladies wouldn't come into your room. So the whole week you would have to clean up your own bed. There were protocols. I think it was very professionally done. Weighing, you make weight. You do the corona test. Two person tested positive.
Yeah.
So in that week they tested positive. They got cancer, but I read something that they didn't have any symptoms. So that sucks. Fight week, you come, you show up, you training camp, and then you have your weight cut, and then it's final day. You have to fight and get paid. Your fight get canceled. So obviously it sucks, but I got lucky. I was still happy that I fought. Fighting with no audience didn't really matter. Maybe I think if there would have been audience, there would be more. The pace would have been gone up.
A little bit more.
I feel like that because once the fans are booing, sometimes you're like, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
I think stuff like that. But for me, it didn't matter because at the end of the day, cage closed. Sometimes you fight in your opponent's country, they boo. Sometimes the fans are for you. For me, it never made a difference if the fans were for me or against me, or you don't have an audience now. At the end of the day, it's just fighting. You fight every day in the gym. Now you fight in the cage. Mm-hmm. Around it never distracted me. So I was okay with fighting with no audience. I was just happy that I fought after 1 year layoff. I'm not getting younger, so I was just happy that I fought.
Cool. Well, all your fights, I mean, everyone can look up and see all the stats. I know you've answered so many questions about your fighting career and stuff, and I like to talk more in depth about the person, my guest, and especially when I'm fans of my guests, I like to know a little bit more about their lives and about kind of where they came from. And if you don't mind, I'd love to know about how it was for you growing up in the Netherlands and kind of like as a child. What was your life like? What did you do growing up, and then what got you into fighting in the first place, or in martial arts, I guess?
Well, I did some judo when I was 8. Growing up, normal, typical, good, nothing complaining to complain. Yeah, we didn't have a lot of money. Girls didn't like me.
Girls didn't like me. That changed now.
That gave me some motivation to want to be somebody. You know what I mean? Right. So I started. I saw boxing. I thought, well, these guys, they're champions. They're respected. They have money. That's how I felt as a kid. I thought if I can beat anybody, then people will respect me, you know. And then that's how I started with boxing, and then gradually went to kickboxing, MMA, because my brother was doing MMA. Typical, you know, nothing special. I went to school. If my brother would go fishing, I would go fishing. My brother was doing fitness. I was doing fitness. I had a good childhood, you know. Nothing special. Nothing, you know. It was okay. It wasn't the best, but it was not bad, you know.
Yeah, I think girls were a big influence on a lot of fighters becoming fighters. I watched the Karate
Yeah.
Kid, and I wanted to be like Ralph Macchio and beat up the bad guy and get the girl. So I was like full on, like from that point on.
Yeah, especially puberty, you know, when you're a little horny you know, that makes a lot of difference, because there's a lot of guys that you know, that talent, you know, but once they when they party at a young age, they hang out with girls and stuff, and then maybe the career, they never get to where they have to go. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But some people, when they don't have anything, I mean, let's say you live in Dagestan, there's not much to do with those Russians. You know, there's no partying there. There's no girls there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's easier to concentrate on fighting. You know what I mean? So I think environment makes a lot, has a lot to do. You see a lot of good boxers coming from the ghetto. You know what I mean? How many times have you seen a world champion that the parents were millionaires?
Right.
Almost never. You know, it depends on personality, of course, 100%, what kind of person you are, and also in what kind of environment you grow up, you know, what kind of character, what kind of experience you have to get far in fighting, you know, or whatever, in soccer or whatever kind of sport you are, you know. Usually you have to have that fire in you, you know, and usually you have that when life is not that good to you. You have that extra will to do better. You know what I mean? Because let's say if I have kids now, my kids are not gonna be fighters. They will never be good fighters, because they will have a comfortable life. They will have a good life, easy life. They live in Holland. It's free. You have freedom. You have health. You have anything you want. Why would they go fight somebody in the cage to break bones, to blood, sweat, injuries? For what? They wouldn't have that mentality, you know. Those are things that makes you as a person.
Yeah.
Or a fighter, or a soccer player, whatever.
Yeah, no, I agree with you fully. I have a fighter named Manel Cap. I just sent him to San Jose. He was same thing. He grew up poor and couldn't afford a lot of things, and he always wanted the nice shoes and this and the other, you know. Yeah. And his family would be like, you guys, you and your brothers want shoes. One of you can have a pair, or you got to split them or whatever. And you know, now we brought him up to fight in Ryzen. He became the Ryzen champion. He started making a bunch of money, and now he's like Gucci, Louis Vuitton. He's like the whole Conor McGregor thing. Now he just got signed with the UFC. He's about to have his first fight in the UFC, fighting a top 5 fighter coming up here in a couple months, actually a month. So yeah, the same thing. The fire that drove him was wanting to be able to have nice things, because he didn't have those as a kid. All right, guys, I'm going to thank our sponsors really fast. Our first being Manscaped, the official trimmer of the UFC, and now the official trimmer of the Real Quick with Mike Swick podcast. Precision engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped is the best below-the-waist men's trimmer on the market. The products are amazing. Trust me. And now you can save 20% by entering code QUICK at checkout at manscaped.com. manscaped.com, and it'll show support to the podcast. You'll get the best groomer on the market, and it's a win-win for everyone. And as always, the Real Quick with Mike Swick podcast is brought to you by AK Thailand, the world's premier luxury training resort here in Phuket, Thailand. We are still offering the 30% discount. Go to akthailand.com to find out all the information about the gym, or you can email info@akthailand.com, and we will answer all your questions, and we'll literally do it within probably a couple hours. We're very good on customer service. That's a big thing for us. We're 5-star rated, one of the highest rated destination gyms in the world, and that is because of that customer service. So info@akthailand.com or akthailand.com for the website. And if you're still not familiar with the gym, here's our commercial.
What's up, everybody? I am here in Thailand. This is the first time I've ever been here. Been dying to come here for years. Mike Swick, he's one of the big reasons he's been trying to pull me down here. What he built down here, AKA Thailand, is incredible. There's people here from all over the world. can train mixed martial arts here, jiu-jitsu. They have weightlifting, they have cardio, and obviously they have Muay Thai, boxing, everything. I'm telling you guys, I know everybody wants to go to Thailand because Thailand's so cool, but you can't come to Thailand without coming to AKA Thailand. Come on.
Going back really fast at your childhood, you were a champion boxer, though, at 16. Was it a natural for you?
Yeah, there's a regional, and then I think I was one time Dutch champion, but regional, a regional, and then Dutch champion I was one time. I was doing well in boxing, but there's no great coaches, and there were no real amateur fights. Back then, when you had Germany in the Bundesliga, you had a lot of fighters. But boxing is dying a little bit in Holland. There's not a lot of fighters. You have some good still champions, world champion amateur boxers, but it's not that big. So for me, I always wanted to make it. Then my brother was starting to rent videotapes.
Yeah.
From Igor von Fenchen. He was fighting those tournaments with giants in Russia somewhere, or he was fighting a guy 500 pounds or whatever, and we would watch that, and that's how we thought, MMA, let's, cage fighting or whatever. We were interested in it, let's say.
Other than those videos, what flipped the switch for you? Like, what was it that flipped the switch where you're like, okay, I'm going to be a fighter, and this is going to be my career. I'm going to go out there, and I'm going to make a living and actually make money off of this.
Well, when I was 15, I did boxing, and then I always wanted it. I never knew if I could have, but I was determined. You know what I mean? There were guys that were more talented than me, but they, like I said, they went partying or whatever. Yeah. They all stopped. For me, even though I didn't have good trainers, I was like, I have good trainers, but they're not really involved, let's say. But I would go 5 rounds on the back. I would go 5 rounds of shadow boxing. I would go 3 rounds against the speedball. I wanted it. You have to have the will to, even if you don't have the greatest facilities or you have the greatest people around you, if you have the will, you will get it. Right. You will get there. And, that's how I started. I think I say, and you have to have luck. Luck, some talent. It's not like but that's how I started.
Do you agree though? Like, it seems like even with business now, for me, because I'm like a businessman, and then I went through fighting, and it seems to be the same. But do you agree that, like, the more you train hard, the more you push, the more you take steps forward, the more risk you take? Doesn't it seem like there's more luck that comes with that? It just seems like you do get luckier a little bit more than these guys that just sit around and hope, for things to happen. I mean, the luck kind of follows the people with momentum, I think. Yeah,
listen, you have to create luck, but also me saying, well, I was born for this. Well, listen, my parents moved to Holland when I was 8.
Yeah.
If my parents would have never moved to Holland, I would never got involved in sports. You know what I mean?
Right.
My life would have been totally different. Maybe the greatest boxer ever has never touched the glove. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Just because of circumstances. Maybe someone is a teenager and gets 2-3 kids and he has to work. But he could have been the greatest fighter of all time. But that's luck. You know what I mean? That's luck. It's luck when you are surrounded with good people. It's not always luck. You have to create stuff. But I mean. You have to have the right people. You have to have the right circumstances. Where you live, who your parents are. Those things matter.
Absolutely.
So luck in that, luck in injuries maybe. Some people are very talented, but they get injured very fast. You know what I mean? So the career maybe never takes off. So there's things that you can have influence over, and a lot of things that is out of your, it is not even in your control. You were just born in it, and that's it.
Yeah. And then going back to when you were talking about setting your kids up and hoping that they don't have to fight because they can have nice lives and stuff. I heard that you invest a lot. Like, so some of your fight purses and stuff, you buy properties and you buy land, you buy things like that in the Netherlands. Is this true?
Yeah, I got some. When there was crisis in 2008, we bought a lot of buildings.
Oh, cool.
When no one was buying, we were buying.
Yeah.
Because it felt for us as a good investment, because I would be able to fight. Before I was security, I was a bouncer with my brother,
Yep.
and I would fight. Because in the weekends I could work, and then the rest of the week I could train.
Yep.
Because it was easy to combine, So we thought about getting a restaurant or whatever, but that's a lot of work. When you're fighting, you're fully professional. You don't have time for that stuff.
Yeah.
So we thought buildings was good because you can rent it. There's not a lot of headache. At least you can do it on the side. You know what I mean? So that's how we started. There was a lot. We bought a lot of property, and we're still buying. But nowadays, it's everyone wants to buy property because the interest of the banks are low. You have a lot of competition now. Even my friends that are cab drivers are buying houses.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different market now. But that's my pension.
Yeah.
This way I can stop and I can enjoy life a little bit.
When you do stop, like whenever you're done fighting, whenever you say this is enough, I don't want to fight anymore, what is it that you want to do for your life afterwards, your post-career life? Like say when you're 40, 45, like what would be fun for you in a post-career?
Well, this year in quarantine, it was tough. Suddenly you don't have anything to do, and then you realize fighting is all you know.
Yeah.
So it got me. I always thought, okay, I'm gonna do that. Just gonna go and enjoy life, but you don't enjoy life without work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even if you have to a lot of money, you can go everywhere, but if you don't work, you don't take the pleasure out of what you, let's say, spend, or you have to work to enjoy it, let's say. So that got me to realize that I have to do something. So maybe coaching. I think coaching would be something. Maybe being a dad. I don't have kids yet, so I think that's gonna keep you busy. You have to have something that you work with, something to get up for. So I thought maybe own a hotel. Something small, but I still focus on fighting now. I don't have any idea what I'm gonna do, but definitely gonna help out my friends with coaching and training. So other than that, not a clue.
I'm sure the real estate and the buildings that you've purchased are going to continue to help you out as well.
Yeah.
What is it exactly? Do you think at this point, it might be too early to say specifically, but what do you think? Because you've won world titles, you're a champion now. You've done everything. You've beat almost everyone. What is it that's going to make you stop? Like when is it? What do you think it's going to take for you to say, okay, I've done enough and I want to move on? When you have that ability to do so.
Well, I think 2 years, next 2 years, I'm gonna fight anyway. So I'm gonna be 37. And then I really have to stop and think, because see how the body feels, what the results of the fights are. Because if I keep losing, then it's time to hang it up. Even though you feel like you're going to do well. Because like last time I saw Anderson Silva, he was still saying, I have to talk to my coaches. I'm like, you don't need to talk to your coach. Just look at your record. He didn't have win in I don't know how many years. He got injuries, losses, no contest. So if I have that, I will know, it's time to hang it up. But I got one loss in my last 10 fights. So the next 2 years, I'm going to keep fighting. I'm going to go up to light heavyweight to fight for the belt. Sooner or later, I will go. Do I care about double champ status? No. But I got reminded when they signed me to fight in both divisions. That was one of the things that they thought, okay, I'm gonna be interesting for Bellator. So I'm gonna come to the terms that I agreed on. So light heavyweight fight is gonna definitely be there. and get some more wins, and then it's time, it's time. Eventually you have to stop, but I want to fight and stop on top. I don't want to go on a losing streak. So, but so far it's been going good.
Speaking of that, what do you think about Khabib and him retiring and doing it in his way? There's obviously people saying he's going to come back. Dana's trying to get him back, and we don't know. Me being his teammate and Javier being his coach, we don't ask him. Javier doesn't ask him. We don't want to pressure anything, but we kind of feel he might be done. It might be really tough to get him to come back, and even if he comes back, he's still going to not go continuously and lose like we talked about other fighters. What do you think about that in his career and the way he retired and kind of how he kind of ended on top, like what you said?
It was very sudden. I don't think anyone was expecting it. I think it's very difficult because I know he dealt with injuries, and then you're in the top of the game. You worked your whole life to get there. That's the only thing you do, fighting. Yep. He's been fighting since, I don't know, when he was a young kid. So
very young.
So for him to retire, I think is a very hard decision, especially when you worked your whole life to get there, when you're the absolute number one. I think that's a very difficult decision, It's a lot more easier when you're losing and, it's time to hang it up. But for him, I think to stop was very difficult. I find it unfortunately because everyone was enjoying his fights. I think everyone was liked to see him fight more. But I feel like he's a guy that he might come back for another fight, maybe. But he's a guy, I think, when he says he's going to stop, he's going to stop,
Yeah.
I don't think he's a McGregor who retired 2-3 times and he's still fighting.
He won't. And he's a man of his, he's a very honorable person. And I haven't had this conversation with him and I never will. But from what I've heard, he had two promises, one to his father, his late father, and then one to his mother. And they were kind of opposite in the form of his father wanted him to go 30-0, but his mother wanted him to stop fighting when his father passed and then kind of granted him this last fight. So I think it's going to come down to him talking to his mom and then seeing if she'll agree to him, because his father's for it, and so in his father's honor, it would be okay to take another fight. And now it's just about the honor of his mother and getting that over with. So that's what it's going to come down to. But I think either way it goes, even one more fight or not, win or lose, I think he's definitely, even if he retires after a loss or one more win, whatever, he's definitely one of the very, very few that's been able to do something like that.
Yeah, 100%. 100%, yeah. You have guys that were considered the best, but then you had the pets accusations.
Yes. Yep.
So you never had that with Khabib. The guy, I think mentally toughness, I never seen a fighter tougher than him mentally.
Yeah.
I think that was his greatest asset, It was just mentally above everyone. And physical strength, I don't know, the guy fight bears. So
I know, and I can tell you, it's like a heavyweight. When he grabs your wrist, it's literally like it's mind-boggling how his strength is, his grip strength and his control strength. It's I was a middleweight the first time I trained with him, almost pretty much a middleweight dropping a welterweight, and it's like it was phenomenal strength. So I know what those guys. When they show those up close shots of those guys' faces when they get taken down and they're getting clinched and they have that look, I kind of know what they're thinking a little bit. I can just imagine in the middle of an actual fight with everything on the line how that would play out in your mind. But yeah, and then let me just go back really fast, just real quick. You in the Netherlands, the way you're training right now, what is a typical day of training for you? Like a lot of people probably want to know, what do you do from Monday through Friday during your fight week?
Yeah, I have 2 times strength and conditioning a week. I do 1 time sprints, but I used to run a lot, but I don't do those anymore. I do on the Airdyne, what is that?
Yep, we do it.
Bicycle, what is that?
The Airdyne. We have an Airdyne workout at AK as well.
Yeah. And then I have 3 times where I do MMA, where I put everything together. Then it's stand-up, wrestling, ground. I mix those things up. I have 1 day that I only specific train on wrestling. I have 2 days that I do only kickboxing. And on those MMA days, I also do a lot of ground. So I put everything together, let's say. And then I have days that I do still Airdyne, but then 45 minutes I do. What I do is I do a lot of sparring.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I do light sparring, not light sparring. I mean, I go with guys that we don't go hard. We don't hit the head like crazy, because when you're training for a fight, you want to be fight ready. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The technique is already there. You're not gonna be suddenly a jiu-jitsu expert, in 2-3 months. All I would need to do is get in shape, get those fighting rounds, and be prepared. And sometimes too much sparring is gonna be it's gonna have this I say reverse
disadvantage.
effect.
Yeah.
Too much, you're gonna give too much in the fight, in the training, and then in the fight you're not hungry to fight. So you have to balance it out. But I feel like with sparring you sharpen up everything. It's the thing that you're gonna do. I can go and hit 100 times dead presses, or I can train every day with push-ups and whatever. That's not what fighting is about. I can lift weights every day. That's not realistic. It's not realistic to what you do. You're fighting. That's what you should do. A soccer player what should he do? He should play soccer. I think one time I went to the Olympic judo team. What I've learned is they would do technique and then sparring.
Right.
They would stop. They would do a couple of techniques. They would go sparring again. A couple of techniques, sparring.
Right.
That's the way you should train. You have to put technique. You have to have a plan what you do. So if you're learning an armbar, okay, then jiu-jitsu. Try to do the armbar against your opponent, or your training partner. So that's the way I trained a lot. A lot of sparring with a goal in mind, let's say.
Yeah, no, I agree with you fully. Like, coming from the old days at AK, we trained too hard. We sparred too hard, and we beat each other up. We missed a lot of fights, and we had to learn to change our curriculum and spar smarter and lighter. And when I say lighter, I know you probably, this is how you do it as well, but for my guys, we spar full speed. I always want full speed, just not full power, because you get these guys that go half speed. That's not realistic to a fight. You can still go full speed, but not full power, but beating the crap out of each other for, 3 days a week, 5 rounds a day, you're gonna be dead. We were killing ourselves in the old days.
But that's you learn from it. You know what I mean? MMA is still a relative young sport, and you guys have to learn it the hard way. When you guys get injured all the time, I know a lot of AKA guys were getting injured because of the hard sparring. So you can go hard maybe in the wrestling, maybe, but also with punches. If you go hard on every day, after you still want to get old, we never go hard on the face. We never hit each other. It's just, if I tap you on the face, that should be enough for, hey, he hit me, because there's no point for me to jab him through his head, because the guy needs to get old. He still has a kid or whatever, you don't see those things, because I went to some gyms here in Holland, and they would go 100%. They said, kill. The teacher came to me and said, okay, try to knock the guys out, because they're going to try to knock you out. Then he left. And I was like, okay, these little guys were doing, the flying knees to my chest. I was like, well, I'm going to make a lot of money. These idiots make maybe 500 euros. They're going to injure me out of my fights. Never went back, of course. I thought, okay, this guy's not going to have any brain cells over when they're a little bit older, when they're 50. I want to see how they look, you're a champion if you're also champion after fighting. You know what I mean? Yeah. When you're healthy, absolutely. It's not like, oh, I'm champion in the ring, because after that, it stops. Everything stops. When you're poor, you lost all your money. When you're broke, you're injured. No one's going to say, hey, champ. No. You have to be champ inside and outside, just for yourself, for your family, for your loved ones. It's just not fighting, kill.
Yeah, I'm lucky to be able to be doing a podcast right now. I'm just happy I can talk, and I hope I can get through this without this setting in.
No, but last time I heard Babalu. Did you hear? He said Babalu had something. He was walking sideways, he said. He had something brain...
yeah, it's scary.
So when you hear those stuff, you think, okay, it could happen to me also, because I'm fighting,
What did Lovato get? What was it that he had? Did he have something had with his brain, or what? I don't know. I know he had to.
Blutproppe, something like the veins, there were pops in his head are like circles, maybe because of veins that were full of blood. At least that's what I understood from it. I don't know. I'm not a doctor,
Yeah, it
And
sucks.
once you get a punch, it might get popped,
Right.
and then the blood will
Too
go to your
dangerous.
brain, and then it might kill you. So
Give you a stroke or something.
something like that. I'm not an expert, I didn't. That's what I understood when I asked someone. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why you have MRI scans. You have, it's a dangerous sport. So yeah, anything can happen. Every fight can be the last one.
I got to ask you about a couple guys real fast. Now, I know you're in Bellator and he's in the UFC, but I want to ask you about this guy because of his fight IQ, your fight IQ. You remind me a lot about him. You probably already know who I'm talking about. But Adesanya, obviously, with his big win, what do you think? I'm not saying you're going to fight him and who would win and all that, but just from a veteran standpoint of someone who I think is a lot like him and very smart and strategic and how you fight, what do you think about him? Like what is your overall assessment of him as a fighter now and how he's growing as a fighter?
Well, he's a guy who could be a champion for a long time, He could be the next Anderson Silva. Especially, he's undefeated, he's confident, First, when I saw him, I thought, well, he's a kickboxer.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about his ground game or his wrestling. But he proved he can get up. Yo Romero didn't do anything. Whitaker wasn't able. And none of the guys were able to take him down and keep him there, Still, some guy might take him down and he will have a really hard time because we never seen him there, We never seen him. But also, Khabib never went. I never seen Khabib on his back,
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything. So far, he has shown that he's going to be a champion for a long time. His stand-up is good. He has he's hard to take down, or if you take him down, he pops up.
Pops up, yep.
Yeah, and he's beaten a lot of good names right now. I think Whitaker, that's the biggest name he beat. So, technical guy. I think you need a guy that's also technical in the stand-up, and it might be a very boring fight. But everyone is beatable, but at this moment, he looks unstoppable.
And from your experience, what do you think about? I'm sure you've seen Khamzat Chimaev come up and stuff. Being that you've worked so hard to get where you are and beat so many top-level guys and had to work so hard to get where you're at, and then this guy has came on the scene and shown what he's shown, which I'm asking you about, and then became a literally a beyond superstar in such a short amount of time. What is your take on that as far as him propelling into superstardom, and then also his technique and from what you can tell so far? Is he going to be a guy that's going to prove himself against Leon Edwards, or is he a guy, do you think, that it may be too early to tell really what he's made of yet?
Well, so far, he looks good. He won all his fights, but everyone needs to get tested. You want to see him in a 5-round fight. You want to see him against a good wrestler. You want to see him against. But so far, he shows a lot of potential. Him being such a big superstar that's UFC pushing.
Mm-hmm.
If UFC gets behind you, suddenly they can make you a god. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they can.
We saw that with Ronda Rousey. If they want to build you up slowly, they will build you up. If they want, so that's all marketing. And, the guy is fighting also a long time. Every fighter that's go up and gets where he has, I'm happy for them. You know what I mean? Because this is not an easy thing, So he's doing his job. I'm looking forward to the next fights and see against tougher opponents, better ranked fighters. So there's a lot to know still that he has to prove. Like Israel Adesanya, when he came, I thought, well, that guy is a kickboxer.
Yeah.
But he's a world champion now.
Yep.
So, anything can happen. Sometimes some guys are hypes, and then so we just have to wait and see, But him getting the attention he got, good for him, I think every fighter it's a hard sport. When you come here and you get lucky, I'm happy for you,
Yeah, and you've had 2 fights with Uriah Hall, and then obviously Anderson Silva is who Anderson Silva is. What were your thoughts of that fight?
I didn't look the whole fight. I just looked at the finish. But I saw some glimpse. I skipped a lot. But that's a guy that's his reaction is not there anymore.
Right.
Anderson, when Uriah Hall caught him, it was just punching and going forward. That's a guy that's age. That's reaction time.
Yeah.
That's not timing it well. It's not that Anderson Silva is not good anymore. That's just father age, catching up with you. So I think he should retire. Anderson, He had a great career. In his prime, he was the best. So he's just,
He's 42.
He went too longer than he should have. But that's what I say. That's why I say it's very difficult to stop, especially when Khabib stopped in his prime. Anderson cannot let go of it, because there's not much he knows. That's fighting is all he knows, and so it's more difficult for someone like that to stop. But eventually, they should not let him fight anymore. I think UFC should say, okay, against very good guys, I think they would hurt him even more.
Right. Absolutely. I agree with you. And he's like 42 right now, and he's a legend of the sport. He's an icon. Lastly, looking forward in your career with Bellator and the fighters that you have to potentially match up against, who are you excited about? Who do you want to fight? What's ahead for you now?
Well, I think number 1 and 2 is John Salter, and I forgot the Russian name. The Russians have difficult names. And then the light heavyweight. So the lightweight champion. So those are my options at this moment.
Yeah.
Those 3 fights. I'm gonna defend my belt once before I move up, or maybe twice, whoever they give me. And then it's light heavyweight.
Gotcha. And then lastly, last question is there anybody, I mean, considering the roster you've had, is there anybody that you haven't fought that you've really wanted to fight, or that that you've specifically wanted to test yourself against that you just never have so far?
I never had the desire to fight anybody, to be
Just whoever they
honest.
said,
Like, especially, I want to fight this guy, or I want to fight this guy. Never had that. I always wanted to fight for the belt. That was always my goal, whoever they give me, or I thought, okay, this is a fight I have to fight to get to the belt. But never had the desire, I have to fight this guy. Maybe once I really wanted, that was Melvin Manhoef, because I was upcoming and everyone was saying, well, they didn't give me any credit. So I challenged him, but that was the only fight that I felt like, okay, I got something that I want to show or something. Yeah.
Well, listen, Gegard, man, I appreciate you taking the time out for this podcast and giving me so much of your time. It's an honor, man. I'm a huge fan of yours. I look forward to your fights, and hopefully we can catch back up in the future and have another podcast.
Thank you, my friend. Yeah, I appreciate it. I enjoyed this podcast. Thank you.
Awesome. That means a lot to me, man. Thank you so much for doing it, and good luck with your career and staying safe in this COVID situation. And I'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Thank you. You too, buddy. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, Gegard Mousasi. What a great podcast, man. That was really cool for me. I like talking to guys like him. He's such a cool dude, and he's just done so much for the sport, and he's just so chill. Like I mentioned in the podcast, he keeps such a chill demeanor. During the podcast, before fights, during the fight, after the fight, he's just a fighter. He goes in there and does his job, and he does it very, very well. And it was an honor to talk to him and get to know him a little bit better, since I haven't had a conversation with him of this length, and actually of much length at all. We haven't really crossed paths that much in our careers. He kind of started his career sort of at the end of mine. So hopefully you guys took a lot out of it as well. I think we brought out a lot of information about him as a person, which I like to do. I think fighters are human like everybody else, and I think a lot of podcasts and interviews stick to just the fight aspect, and the training aspect, and it's just redundant, and it's over and over and over. And I think sometimes you want to know who the person is, and that's what builds interest in that person, especially for their followers, and especially when you have such an interesting guest who's really cool like Gegard is. And so this was great. This was a great experience to have him on, and for him to be able to give us so much of his time and open up and talk about all these things. So this is the reason I do the show. This is a great example of why I love doing this and why I'm passionate about doing these interviews with these type of guests. So hopefully you took a lot from it as well. Please leave a comment. If you're on YouTube, let us know what you think. Let us know, any critiques or who you'd like to see on the show in the future. We're in the midst of booking a lot of people right now. We're going to keep this thing going. Follow us on all platforms. If you're not following on YouTube, we are on all the podcast platforms, the audio platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Amazon, everything. I'm missing a few, but we're everywhere. So as always, thank you so much for the support. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.